For about the last 20 years, I've had a deteriorating kidney. So I've been on dialysis for about the last 18 months. My name is Bernard Comijong. I went for a test and the doctors told me I was down to 6% function on my kidneys. They kept me in hospital for a month, which I was unhappy about because you don't need to be in hospital to have dialysis. And it just meant that a whole heap of things, work-wise, personally, just came to a complete standstill. Including things like I'd been working on a big conference in London which had several hundred people coming to it, and I just wasn't able to go. I was trying not to be angry with the staff. They were just doing their jobs, but I was really not that happy about being in hospital. I was having dialysis 3 times a week and the rest of the time just not doing anything. I was told I had to stay in the bed, in the hospital bed, despite the fact that I was doing nothing all day, otherwise I'd lose the bed and lose the treatment. And it just became very, very frustrating. Things probably improved between me and God at the time for a number of reasons. One, I had lots of time for spare, but things like my quiet times improved. Things like listening to podcasts, reading, they all improved. I learned huge amounts about, just how to occupy your time. So I learned to be patient, a lot more patient than I was. I learned to be, just to spend time quietly with God. So in that respect, it was actually, my relationship with God improved. I think it helped that my kidneys had been bad for 20 years and this was something I was expecting to happen, so I was prepared for it. So I've no idea what would have happened had it just come out of nowhere.
I used to get really angry at all my family for moving away and leaving me on my own. Now, especially with my siblings, we are so much closer than what we were when we all lived together. My sister is my best friend, and I love my 2 nephews. I get on really well with my brothers. I'm Beth Archer and I'm training to be a children's nurse. I am the youngest of 4, so I grew up with quite a big family around me, and back in 2014 my mum and dad moved to France to run an English-speaking church. My brother moved to America to be with his new wife. My sister lived up in Manchester and my oldest brother lived in Ipswich, and even though he was just down the road, he was quite busy with his job, so I didn't see an awful lot of him at the time. So at that time I had just finished my A-levels and I wanted to go to university to train to be a children's nurse. I applied to 5 different universities, and slowly, one by one, over the couple of months I sort of got rejected and told I hadn't got a place. And then I remember when the 5th rejection came through, I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I remember saying to my fiance Alex, like, I didn't think I'd ever get to be a children's nurse because I didn't feel like I was good enough for the job, because 5 different people had basically said, no, we don't want you to come and do our course. I knew that I could apply again the following year to go to uni, but at that current time I didn't have any plans of what to do for that year, because I thought I would get in and I'd go and I'd be doing it. So I was left a bit in limbo really, and I was living in our family home all by myself because everybody else had moved away and was doing other things. So I had to find a job to be able to support myself and to be able to live life and look after myself, which was the first time that I'd really had to fend for myself completely, because I didn't have my parents or my siblings close by. For that year I managed to find myself a job, but it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing and I didn't really enjoy it, so I found it difficult getting up in the mornings, going to a job that I didn't enjoy, and then coming home. I didn't really enjoy living on my own. I'm a little bit of a wimp, so I'm a bit scared of the dark, so being in a big house on my own in the winter months wasn't very nice, and I felt like I had a responsibility to keep the house nice and to keep it well maintained, because it was my parents' house, it was our family home. I think I remember feeling quite like it was really unfair that everybody else was off doing what they wanted to do. They were doing the jobs that they'd always wanted to do, and I was here doing a job which wasn't my first choice. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, and I just thought, why me? Why didn't I get to do my dream? Why am I stuck?
I'm quite a loud character, quite strong, quite happy, and people see me as that. But it's not always been like that in my life. About 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, I was actually married. Some people don't know that about me. It's not something that I keep hidden, but I suppose it's not something that comes up in conversation very often. My name's Matt Levitt. I work for the Forge Community Church as their Director of Youth. So I actually got married on the day that Princess Diana died, so the end of August 1997. And Emma was a great girl. She was part of a local church, and we got married. But very quickly after that, Emma realised that she'd made a mistake and that she didn't actually want to be married to me. She wasn't in love with me. You know, I don't say that to put Emma down at all. She loved God, and she didn't do anything to hurt me deliberately. I think she was just more in love with the idea of being married rather than in love with me. In addition to that, she became quite ill quite quickly. She became ill with ME. And so that was a big struggle for us in the very early days of our marriage. And we really worked at it, but it was quite clear that Emma didn't want to be married, and soon she left me. And so within a couple of years of being married, my kind of hopes and dreams that you have, which are sky high, of thinking about family and thinking about what God might have in store for you, suddenly felt shattered. And in addition to that, there's the struggles that I guess many of you might realise, the struggles of having to talk about, you know, your wife leaving you or being divorced, and the embarrassment that perhaps comes with that, maybe the shame that comes with that, the self-doubt, because you think, well, what did I do? What could I have done differently? Was I really that bad a person? In that time, it feels like a whirlwind of emotions. You feel like you want to perhaps go in the house and shut the door and not see anyone. You feel like you just want to hide away.
1st of February, really, I got a phone call from a doctor. He told me they had a kidney for me, and could I get to the hospital within an hour or so to have a new kidney put in. The doctors are really pleased with how quickly I've improved, and so I was up the next day after the transplant. I was out of hospital within 6 days. It all happened really quickly, and I had to get ready and get up to the hospital and have the tests. So I wasn't really feeling a lot, really. I was just, it just didn't feel real at the time. I'd always had this kind of, sort of superhero complex where actually nothing wrong will happen to me. And pretty much for the last 20 years, I've been learning that actually bad things do happen to me, and can happen to me, and can happen to other people I know. But I'm quite, that it's just a normal part of life. It's a normal part of life, and actually there's positives that can come out of it in terms of my own growth and learning, in terms of my relationship with God, in terms of, just learning to be accepting and peaceful about it.
So I managed to get a job working on the children's ward at the hospital, so that was within my interest. That was what I wanted to do, be a children's nurse. And I reapplied to university, and this time around I actually got 3 offers, which was a really big confidence boost, and it made me forget all those feelings of, I'm not good enough. So now I am just 2 months away from qualifying and being a children's nurse, even though there was a time where I really wasn't okay, and I really, in a way, resented my family for abandoning me, so to speak. Everything is better now, and I feel I'm on track, and I feel like I am now living my dream. It just came a bit later than theirs.
I made a decision that I'd always work for peace, that I didn't want to fight over money or possessions or anything like that. I made a decision that I would always try and speak well of Emma as well as I could. But fortunately, I had some really good, close friends around me who were able to speak into my life And they kind of said, look, Matt, what sort of person do you want to be through this? That wise counsel from friends really helped me through those initial early stages. I knew what I believed about marriage. I knew what I thought the Bible said about marriage and divorce. And so that left me in a place where actually I knew I was facing a life of singleness. Now, as I'm talking here, I'm really conscious that there'll be people listening who are also divorced, maybe divorced and remarried. And I really don't want you to think that I'm being critical of you or condemning you. My promise to Emma, my wife, was until death us do part. That was a promise I made to Emma, and it was a promise I made before God. And I'm trying my best to live up to that promise. So looking back over that story, obviously that's kind of 15, 20 years ago, and I'm fine now. And I would have said I was fine then. It's just, it feels like everything gets too much. But it is okay to not be okay. It's okay for Christians to say, hey, I need some help here. It's okay for Christians to say, look, you've got it sorted out, but I haven't quite yet. Can I have some help here? It's okay for us to call on our friends and say, I need you in this one. To seek wise counsel from people. I guess the best way to describe it is perhaps it's like a scar. You know, when we injure ourselves physically and your body heals and it forms a scar. Well, it doesn't mean it's never happened, doesn't mean the injury never happened, doesn't mean it's exactly back as it once was before. But if you treat it well, if you look after it, if you do your physiotherapy, then actually you can still use the limb, use the injured part just as you did before. And I would say that about me. Now, you know, some 20 years on, I'm committed to a path, and with God's help, I'll follow that one through. I can see how He's blessed the situations I've been in, but it is okay to not be okay.